Okay, I think God wants me to put something to do with what sex looks like between a sort of Caine like bloodline and, like, normal sort of God bloodline. Processed sex, this is to do with like the Caine bloodline. Basically, like everything that we've been fed by media and porn, like this kind of visual sort of sexual stimulation, like God always talks about the flesh, and like the way it has that kind of pull. It's very judgmental. This is what I've experienced in V2K as well. Like people who engage with a lot of sex all the time is they kind of compare you to like a scoring system, like it's like non-caring, like about the individual. This is like the stuff that I've put up with like previous relationships, which has had like a massive effect on my ego and stuff like that. You're just like shocked, you like your jaws like opened, and you're shocked that they can come out with stuff like that. I mean, like I've had insults like during the act and stuff like that. It's quick, like they usually only concentrate on their own orgasm. This is coming from, like women experiences with males. I don't know what it's like the other way around, it's probably very much the same. It's very quick and over, like I've had boyfriends, or if you could call them that, that have like literally visited for half an hour, I was actually like kind of placed lower than prostitute. I didn't know that at the time because I was young and learning, but I never intended to start out being like a prostitute. Like it just ended up that way. They got no responsibility. Like they'll just turn up as and when they want to, like call you for a booty call or whatever. If you get pregnant, they don't care, like they're off, they don't come back. They don't bear no responsibility and they'll just laugh in your face. They can be brutal, as I say, like with their words. During sex, they can be brutal. They could like insult you, like your physicality, which I've had. They're uncaring. They don't show much tenderness, it's usually like the basic act of like, putting it in and taking it out. They just see you as like a piece of meat. It's reductive, compared to like the way God would expect someone to love you, like that they'd take their time. They certainly wouldn't do half an hour jobs, that's for sure. It's self-destructive. If you've got involved with anyone that thinks in this narcissistic way, it literally kills you inside out, like it affects your ego, affects your self-image, it affects other relationships because you bring the baggage from that into somewhere else, and then you judge other people by the same sort of measuring stick. Only cares for itself, as I just says, they're in and then they're out. They don't give a toss about like your needs, a lot of had many guys, like who just turned up and they don't care how they leave you, like you don't have an orgasm or anything, you don't even feel loved. So, it's as I say, like the Caine syndrome. They do seem like very different. They are very fleshy. As I say, I think it comes from Satan being an angel. Like because he went with Eve. Half human, half angel. He didn't understand what a human is. Wasn't built for that job. He's built for a different one. So, like the way he sees women and stuff like that is just a kind of toxic output from his own sort of theories about what humans are about. So, obviously that passed down to Caine, and like they fall short. I mean, like God says that He can help in that department because they are half human, so they think with a half human mind. So they are fleshy and stuff like that. So you can't totally blame them, but it's good to know, like these types. That I mean, like everyone falls short. I mean, sin came totally into the chain of humans, like, and that's why Jesus came. to save and stuff. So all it is just like being aware. As I say, a lot abusive, like, I mean, you've only got to watch porn, like, I mean, like, what put me off porn altogether was I saw this woman, probably an American porn, being abused by, like lots of men, like doing, like one with the mouth open and one, like in the back of her, one in the front. And it looked like really awful, it looked like death. And that completely put me off porn, like I did watch quite a lot of it when I was young. I was trying to learn about the world and trying to work out how men tick. And that was my worldview at the time, that that men tick that way, and that was the way to the heart. But I just didn't realise that there were different kinds of men, like, and it seemed like everyone was the same. But like, it's a lot of situation, like, I forgot his name. I can't remember his name, but he was like in a terrible place, like that, something to do with the angels. I can't remember the name, but he offered up his daughters to these angels. I mean, daughters to these loads of men that were going to take advantage of these angels in his village, and he, like, he was trying to protect them because he knew that they were pure and unfettered, and like, he was in a fallen place. It's like living in a time of a fallen place, so it can be forgiven, like even like masturbation in these times, because like there's no goodness around, it's got lost, and this is where God, Jesus forgives and stuff, because like there are times like this, like where it's all coveted. As I say, like this snake has made its way into our societies, because like God, the foundation of God wasn't there, so they've kind of masked themselves amongst what we would consider normal, and also like they've caused like mass consensus, like myself. But there's something written on your heart that tells you that it's not quite right, and that's another thing as well. If you actually have a relationship with these people and like you actually feel pain once getting abused, or actually in these relationships, you're very likely the other end that you're not of that bloodline, like you're a little bit more sort of virtuous in your bloodline and moral. They've got no boundaries, these people, like they can abuse you, swear over you, can introduce you to all sorts of terrible stuff. Like I had one boyfriend that says, I'd like to see another guy on top of you in a nightclub. Like they go, oh, like you think, oh, that'd be the last thing, an average guy would want, like someone else doing stuff to you in front of their face. So you actually know them by what they say and their actions. They say no boundaries, everything goes. Never satisfied, as I say, they go on about like rating systems, and they'll usually use this thing, guys, that at the end of getting what they want, they'll use a ditching kind of mentality, like where they'll insult you or something. They'll cause devastation to lose you, like because you think that you're gonna like hook up with them again. And then they'll put like plant a bomb, and then they're on to the next person, and they don't care what, how they leave you feeling, because they just want to ditch you after, like making love or whatever, in your mind. As I say, they're never satisfied. They'll insult you, they'll push you around, they'll compare you to another woman, like they just turn up with that sort of demonic grin on the face. They're obsessive with sex because they didn't do it right in the first place. This is what God's told me, like, because they're like, I don't know if they're working it out as they go along, but, like, they can't stop having sex, like, they can't stop. I mean, like, when you see, like, the acts that they actually perform with you, like, they arrive as and when they want to. Like they have sex quite quickly. They only concentrate on their own orgasm, and you're just more or less like a water bottle to them. Like You know, they don't take time for intimacy. They don't take time to come back and make you feel good. They don't take time to take you out. They don't even do that. You know, never went out with half of them. You know, never had that kind of the other side of their personality. You know, like because like God's way is like to have a sort of slow burn. You know, like you know, to get to know somebody. So sex is on the menu, or you know, making love is something that actually sits within marriage. You know, like we've been taught, like wound up on TV sitcoms and you know, like soaps that you know, like to get to it, you know, like blowing your nose, you know, like it's like that kind of mentality. Like they've cut the romance out of like the whole courtship of like men and women coming together. It's like you'll see what you like instantly, like flesh, and you don't know what you're hooking up with. You could be hooking up with a murderer. You know, like that you know, like many women have been bumped off, and men, you know, like and stuff like that. So you know, like you got all that thing as well. As I say, didn't do it right in the first place, and they kind of leaves you kind of hungry for more. You know, like and you know, like I had an experience where this guy would turn up, you know, like every few months because like I was sad and lonely, and you know, I've been autistic as well. You know, you're trying to work it all out. As I say, you know, it affects them with the fact that they can't stop because they didn't do it properly in the first place, and like it leaves the woman feeling hungry and almost obsessive. You know, like this elusive quality. You know, like the phantom. You know, like sort of flies in and then he flies out. I don't know why. You know, like everyone's always saying he doesn't treat you right. He doesn't treat you right. You shouldn't bother, but they're kind of, once you've initiated sex with them, that's it, you're obsessed, aren't you? Unless like you're totally, you know, up for it yourself. As I say, over too soon. Long gaps in between mating, you know, like they turn up when they want, as they want. And saying that, you know, like if you're young and a bit foolish, you're kind of left in an obsessive state. You know, like and like question yourself, did I do something wrong? You know, like, and then you start attacking your own character then. Usually you got umpteen other partners. As I say, they're never satisfied. They do booty calls. There was actually a really good film that Adrian Brody did, Love the Hard Way. This goes on about how destructive this kind of mentality is on like people who are engaged in it. You got this guy who kind of charms this girl, and he's equally as like messed up, and like she just tries to copy him. You know, wants to kill herself just to get attention. So it's like well worth seeing that. Love the Hard Way. As I say, umpteen other partners. Like some of them are married. You know, like got burnt, and you don't usually know that they are married. You know, like they'll leave that to last, you know, and they keep the telephone numbers and their, you know, where they live. I mean, just turn up and stuff. And I was so naive, you know, and as I say, I was like attacking my own character. And I didn't feel right when I found out he was married. He was told me he was separated and he didn't want to take me out from the start, so obviously he was hiding something. As I say, you're always feeling upset, you know, like on cloud nine when they visit. I kind of linked being attractive to someone to my own personal looks and success and stuff. So, you know, like I felt validated when he contacted me, you know, and did the usual half an hour to an hour call. But, you know, I didn't really see that he was using me, which was stupid in a way, because he was. Because, like, he just turned up for booty calls. Booty calls. Yeah, as I say, you're always left in a state of longing because you fall short. This is God's version of lovemaking style. As I say, like you know, like he encourages, you know, like the place of marriage, you know, as a sort of form of like boundary. You know, like if guys don't respect your boundaries, then they don't mean you well. You know, if they want to just get in your knickers straight away, go to bed, they're just out for flesh. You know, that, you know, like there's a lot of guys, you know, although it's a lost art, they're like taking you out, like spoiling you, like the fact that they can talk to you, like. And I think that not much has been made, like God says to do with, like, he made a helper for Adam, like Eve, so she would help him out. And I do believe that could be, like in similar interests. We always get like this boring idea of you gotta have a Christian woman with a cardigan, like, and like she's like totally naughtied in the head, that she's just like a robot that goes around the home with, cleaning. It doesn't have to be that way, like you could have a lot in common. Like a musician could be with a musician, and she could help him with the work, and also the other way around. Like women are not equal in mindset now. They're equally as brainy. And they could do a lot for their career. And the other way around, especially if they've got like complementary kind of roles in that, and like it's a unit that you kind of fight together, through the world. It doesn't have to be boring. I mean, God says about being equally yoked. It's like now we've got a problem that we're from like a bit of a kinky past, and like and God wants it to come back to a kind of more purer-minded future. Now, like you've got like relationships now that could like be a bit of both. Like kind of like with the Enlightenment. Like that could have that kind of side. God turns a blind eye to it as long as you're not kind of hurting anyone else. Like if there's a little bit of kink going on, but he likes it. Like God likes, he's the enforcer. And he likes things straighter. And I think like if you put him as the head person, he'll draw you away from the stuff that's not so good for you anyway, and he'll give you the reasons why. So like you must make God, the centre of your relationship, not the other way around. Whereas a woman couldn't look to the bloke to look to God. No, you look to God, and then the bloke looks to God himself. So he's like the centre pin to correct both parties, like that. But like yeah. What's this other thing? Oh yeah, I once saw something about a Jewish guy. This is like proper Orthodox and not the other kind. He says like they spend time when they're intimate with their wives with the lights off, so they're not in the flesh. So they're actually I think that's actually a direct thing against Caine, to be honest. So they're not reliant on that visual stimulation. As I say, like God's been kind of bringing me through all sorts of stuff in V2K. I was like, you can have sex in V2K, and I have been involved with like two guys, in V2K, because like sometimes it's impossible with the way they burn your body and stuff like that down below. That there's actually like people in the helm that you actually meet like a person. And like the first one was like Jeremy Chatsky, which have gone on in the past on my channel, and like as far as I know, Tom York. As I say, I've talked about like hugging him and stuff like that, and we've got closer in V2K. This is a person that I'm under the impression that it is him, because God's done a lot of drops with him, and he's actually like kind of been a mutual friendship, sort of sexual kind of encounters with each other. As I say, there's a lot of esoteric sexual encounters and that, and like V2K does hook up that way in a lot of ways, trying to like not do it, but sometimes like you're kind of there for mutual comfort. And like I believe that God sort of put me in his way. As I say, like he was going to kill himself on the one night, and like God put me towards him to help him, because he's like in an awful situation where he had like his wife cutting his feet, and like for the kink and vampirism and all that. So we've grown close in V2K via that, and like we have sort of made love in that esoteric way with this V2K. And like when we have, like, God has blessed it, you know, like, because I'm in a bloody awful place in V2K and I can't get out of it. It's like we had, like, you know, the closeness, like basking in each other's sort of masculinity and femininity. You know, like, because, like, you can't do it properly in V2K because you can orgasm and stuff. I've got, like, such a bad mental block. You know, like, they're messing with my body all the time. You've got other people, you know, like, actually feeling what you're going through, you know, like, they try to add their own sexual stimulation on top. It's absolutely depraved. So, you know, like, both of us, you know, like, I hug him via a pillow, you know, like, it's kind of a mental telepathy. But I can feel his body and he can feel mine, and penetration and stuff. As I say, like, God's shown, you know, like, because, like, of that kind of struggle, you know, like, we've actually felt like basking in masculinity and femininity. He's showing them in V2K, you know, he's using it for the ultimate good, that this is what real sex looks like. And, you know, a lot of people in V2K have, like, especially, like, the perpetrators, have only known the fleshy type of sex, you know, the Caine style sex, you know, like, to do with, like, sacrifices and, you know, all like that awful stuff, and, like, multiple partners. They call it layer caking and all that, you know. So there's, like, there's probably, like, hundreds of people that can actually feel what you're feeling with this other person. What was it, basking in masculinity, and it feels like you're like on a water, you know, like, we've had penetration, kind of like V2K, artificial penetration, taking the piece out of me with my and it feels like water, you know, like, it feels like the love, kind of love feels like water, an ebb and flow of water. You know, it's very intimate and relaxing and comforting. You know, this is God's way. You know, like, kind of feeling each other's bodies, bit like tantric sex, but it doesn't have to have, like, an aim of sex at the end of it. You know, like, I can't say orgasms at the end of it. It's kind of embarrassing talking about this, but if you're in V2K, you would know it's absolutely depraved. So it's like a kind of mutual comfort, and, like, from what I feel, I think Tommy's kind of quite like me anyway, you know, like, I do think he's reverent for God, but, you know, like, he has to play this game of devil's advocate. And it says, like, purity sort of drives him nuts, the way I feel about his masculinity. You know, just I can actually feel, like, his body, you know, like, it's almost like a MIDI controller, you know, like, he can drive the software with you know, like, by movements. Not like that, but I mean, like, with technology, you can actually feel and, you know, like, sense their emotions. You can feel, like, their bodies and that, but they have, like, full on sort of sex in this, whereas I've been totally realmed, you know, like, I've had a lot of energy on my head, and they try to block it as hard as they can. Plus, they're, like, torturing me now with, like, squeezing my waist in a bit like a snake. So they're letting me know that I'm like some sort of morsel for them to abuse. So I'm also getting a lot of demonic stuff on top, you know, like with feeling heartbeats from other people, and, like, they're getting off on your pain, you know. So I'm getting all that. So I'm, like, hugging Tom and, like, you know, being intimate with him, but only, like, in a kind of frightened, clinging onto each other kind of way. As I say, you know, you kind of close your eyes and you feel like you're in this basking river, you know, of, like, masculinity and femininity. You know, just the shape of the body and stuff like that, and, you know, the emotional state that they're in. You kind of, like, it's like feeding like that to one another, you know, like, and it is relaxing. As well, what was I saying? Femininity and masculinity. It's like feeling, it's like, at the end of the day, you know, even though, like, he's probably abused me because of, like, the way V2K is, you know, like, because he'd probably get beaten up or knifed or something with the handlers if he was too nice. That's what I'm getting. Sometimes I feel it's deliberate, sometimes I feel he can't help it. You know, it feels like a phone handset, you know, like when you with somebody that thinks and is the same as you. I think, you know, like, it must be God, because, like, it feels right, even after a day of wrong. You know, like, I feel like, oh, click onto, you know, like a handset, and, like, you kind of, like, it's like a breathing out feeling. You know, it's not sordid, like fleshy sex or wherever. You know, it's just like comforting. A place like home. So, you know, when you get the right person, you know, like, that person, it's like all your bags are left at the bottom of the bed. You know, like, you know, like that strain. And you sort of like are tired, and you don't have to prove anything neither. You can just be yourself. I say, and like when you're with somebody, I think that's with God, I think it's like a magnet that brings you back together again. Even, you know, He's the glue. God is the glue that kind of pulls it together again, and it's like very deep. You know, like it's kind of in a mysterious way. I mean, I've tried to get rid of Tom 1,000,000,000 times. You know, like, but it's like a magnet. You know, like something's happened there, but time will tell. The more you stay with a person, the more intimate and knowing each partner becomes of each other. Even though I had, like, my last boyfriend, you know, 6 years, which was a long distance relationship, because I was with him 6 years and he was the only one I knew. You know, you kind of get into the rhythm of knowing each other's bodies. You know what each other responds to or whatever. So the more you're with that person, the more trusting, and trust is a massive thing, I think. I mean, they go on TikTok and stuff about a woman being safe, and I think that's true. You know, like, a woman won't give, she'll just, like, go into masculine mode if she doesn't feel safe, and that can mean what a guy says, the way, you know, like, a guy will compare you to his last girlfriends and stuff. Because, like, if a guy has, like, had a lot of women, you know, particularly like Tom or something, that's had, like, you know, a lot of really good looking women and stuff, you know, like, they kind of raise their heads up in the bed, don't they? You know, like, all these ghosts are coming out, you know, like, I remember this one from that time, and you remind me of that one from that time, and once I was with that other one. I mean, I've had things thrown up in my mind of, like, you know, intimate, or, you know, sort of moments that he's had with other girls, and, like, it doesn't compare with my life at all, you know, like, because I'm council house friendly, you know, like, and it's glamorous, and, like, again, you're, like, kind of dying yourself when you've got a man that's got a past, you know. But I mean, he can't help that, you know. It's part of his world, you know, like. But I mean, like, if you're mismatched like that, it can bring a lot of hurt, and, you know, like, yeah, it's just something I'm going through. And, like, if you become violated, you know, like, that purity, you know, like, that a woman has, you know, if it's violated, which I get quite a lot, you know, like, I get, like, kind of raped in V2K. It's absolutely devastating. It's like, you know, like a boundary too far, you know, like, it's horrific, and, like, for a woman, I can't describe the feeling, what it is, but, you know, it's just like a violation too far. Anyway, that's as far as I can say. But I mean, like, those are the key points to, you know, what's a Caine bloodline relationship like. It's fleshy, it's uncaring, you know, like, you feel devastated. If you are getting those feelings, you're of the other kind, the more sort of virtuous, old-fashioned kind that leans towards God, I think. If you're upset, you need to come away from that kind of thing and start looking for a better man, and obviously the other way around. Okay, that's it for now.